Hi everybody, welcome to the Chats with Chaudhry. I hope you're safe and well. Today we're going to be talking about Recombinant Factor C for Bacterial Endotoxin Testing, or RFC for BET for short. And to help me with that, I'm joined by Brendan Tindall from BioMérieux, who is the Global Solutions Manager for ENDONEXT in the Industrial Microbiology Business Unit. So Brendan, how are you?
I'm great, Rizwan. Nice to finally meet you and catch up after all these time of watching your videos and giving them the likes. It's glad to actually meet you and have a good chat face-to-face, or as face-to-face as we can be in this pandemic situation.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you taking the time out to do this with me actually today, Brendan. So, and you're actually based in Lyon, aren't you? So what's an Aussie doing in Lyon?
Well, it's even longer story than that. So yes, I'm Australian and I live now in France. I've lived here since February this year, but I've moved here from Japan, where I spent the last few years of my life as well. I think I've spent more of my adult life in Japan than in Australia. So yeah, I'm a bit of a everywhere man at the moment.
All right, well, we'll have to do a separate Chats with Chaudhry about traveling in Japan on another episode, actually. But today we're going to be talking about RFC for BET. But before we start talking about that, perhaps you could give people a little overview of BioMérieux if they're not familiar with the company and your role within it.
Yeah, no problem. BioMérieux, the French multinational biotechnology company, it's founded and headquartered here in Lyon, in Marseille-d'Artois, France. They're really focused on diagnostic solutions which determine the source of disease and contamination. So we have a big portfolio that looks at diagnosing infectious diseases, cancer screening, monitoring, and cardiovascular emergencies. But we also have another big part of our portfolio, which is for industry, which is detecting microorganisms and contaminants in agriculture and food, and also pharmaceutical products as well. So this is where I work, and I look after our endotoxin range of products now. So endotoxin for us is a fairly new part of our portfolio. We were lucky enough to be able to purchase Hygloss in 2016 and incorporate their portfolio to match the rest of our, I would say, really great top-level products in the pharmaceutical area.
Fantastic. So let's talk about RFCs. How do RFC differ from traditional lab testing?
So, yeah, when we look at the traditional Lao test, we use the Limulus amoebocyte lysate, which is what Lao, the longer version of Lao, which is where they source the product from the hemolymph of the horseshoe crabs. So with recombinant C, what we're able to do is actually make one of those protein factors recombinantly. So it's produced synthetically. So with the blood of the horseshoe crab or the hemolymph, what happens is the factor C protein inside the hemolymph actually senses the endotoxin. It therefore creates an activity which activates factor B. Factor B creates another activity which also activates a pro-clotting enzyme. Then the pro-clotting enzyme actually can work in a different way depending on what the readout method is, but it creates a readout. So with the recombinant factor C, what we've done is we've only just identified the factor C, the detection or the original biosensor of the endotoxin. Right. And from there, we create a readout once that is activated by endotoxin.
Right. And how does that have an impact on the horseshoe crabs, which have been used for Lao?
Yeah, well, I think this is a very difficult question, and it's not something that we as a company like to go down the track. Where our message is a lot more about the science behind the RFC. But I think when we look at the RFC, anytime a stressor, such as taking an animal from its environment, bleeding them, and some of them will die, or putting them back into the environment, and anytime we can remove a stressor like that, we see it as a benefit. I think it's too early for us to tell if the RFC will save the plight of the horseshoe crab or if other things will impact the plight of the horseshoe crab. We, for one, like the idea that we are a non-animal-based product, but I really don't want to get into the details, because there is so many different arguments on many different sides about the horseshoe crab. Are they surviving? Are they thriving? Are they falling behind or destined for extinction? So I don't think there is enough information on that, but I think there's enough information. Well, I definitely know there's enough information on the science behind RFC.
Well, let's talk about the science. So what science is there behind RFC?
Yeah, well, I think we've only got 30 minutes for an interview, but I think we can do. There is so much scientific data. And when I talk about scientific data, I don't talk about supplier-made scientific data. There is over 10 peer-reviewed papers, all done by people that have no vested interest in recombinant factor Cs. So we have pharmaceutical companies, we have universities, and we have government organizations all showing that there is actually comparability between RFC and LAO. Just actually in 2020, there's been 3 new studies. The 2 were done by Sanofi. There's also been a review done by the PDA Endotoxin Leadership Forum, which actually included Jack Levin, who was the originator, who actually founded the LAO test a long time back previously. And what they concluded is there is enough data available to compare RFC to LAO to detect bacterial endotoxin and ensure patient safety. And this is what it's about. It's making sure there is these peer-reviewed, non-supplier-based scientific evidence. And there is so much of it for RFC and LAO.
Right, okay. And you mentioned authorities. So what do authorities have to say about RFCs? So
when we look at the authorities, there's maybe one group on one side and one on the other. But when we look at the EDQM here in Europe have already published a chapter. You can, even though it goes live in January, you can actually start using that chapter now. So the EDQM have made a standalone chapter, 2.632, to use recombinant factor C for bacterial endotoxin testing. The Chinese Pharmacopoeia have also included a chapter this year, and the Japanese Pharmacopoeia will be including a chapter next year into their updated Pharmacopoeia. But apart from that, there's also the FDA approvals. FDA have approved working products, but also finished products for release using the recombinant factor C. So there's a lot of support behind from the authorities and also from the governing bodies like the FDA.
Right. Okay. Now there are a number of companies who are offering BET solutions out there. So what makes BioMérieux unique?
So, well, uniquely for us, we are the only company on the major ones for the BET provider that does not supply any LAO product. So a lot of the companies out there will supply RFC and LAO. We've been very clear with our messaging from the start that we see RFC as the future, and this is where we want to be. So we don't have a LAO-based product in our portfolio. But that's sort of unique. But what actually differentiates us the most is probably we have this pre-coated Go plate. So it's a 96 weld plate. It's pre-coated with all of your standards for your standard curve and all of your PPCs. So when you're conducting any form of bacterial endotoxin test, you don't need to hydrate and dilute down your recombinant standard endotoxin. It's already pre-coated in the plate. So it's very simple to use. And that's really one of our unique products. And this is what we get so much interest for at the moment.
Right. Okay. Now, I know you guys are presenting at PharmaLab this week, which starts tomorrow, if you're watching this video on Monday, that is. And so who is presenting and what's the topics that you guys will be presenting on at PharmaLab?
So for us, we'll be presenting on mainly the immunology regarding RFC. So we have Kevin Williams, and I'm sure everybody in the game knows about Kevin Williams, but he's going to be talking about the simplicity of QC testing compared to the complexity of immunity. So having a look at how actually endotoxins or even non-endotoxin pyrogens actually affect the immunity system or so forth of humans. So that's part of it. I'm really excited actually about this coming PharmaLab. We're going to have some great talks. I know there's going to be a talk by Professor Ding, who was actually the founder of the recombinant factor C. I noticed we have Ingo Spritzer from PEI who's going to talk as well. I also noticed that the team at Boehringer Ingelheim are going to do a presentation about their experience with the recombinant factor C in their facility.
Right. Right.
Very exciting day. I think the second day it's going to be mainly about MAT and sort of different levels of pyrogen, which again is also a very exciting area as well.
Fantastic. And if people can't make it to PharmaLab, how can they get more information?
Yeah, well, if you can't make it to PharmaLab, and I say you should, but if you can't, you can definitely go onto biomerieux.com and look in our or search under our endotoxin area, or even just search under our brand name, which is ENDONEXT. And there's a lot of information, and you can put your details in and someone can reach out to you from there.
Brilliant. Okay, well, look, I nearly called you Brian then, Brendan. So Brendan,
wouldn't be the first time today, Rizwan.
It certainly wouldn't. So Brendan, thank you very much for taking the time out to talk to me. That's really interesting. It's really good to hear the BioMérieux view in terms of RFCs as well. So thank you for putting over your views and your thoughts on that. As Brendan just mentioned, if you'd like to know more and you're at PharmaLab, check out Kevin's presentation and the other presentations. There's lots of great stuff going on over the next couple of days at PharmaLab, and the link for that is going to be above this video. Similarly, if you can't make it to PharmaLab, then the link for the BioMérieux website will also be above this video. And as Brendan said, just type in the keywords there and you'll be able to find the information you want. On top of that, if you've got any questions for Brendan, whether you agree or disagree with them, it's always good to have a debate, then please put some comments below the video, and I'm sure Brendan will be delighted to answer them or message him directly. So Brendan, all that's left for me to say, mate, is thank you very much for taking time out to talk to me.
Thank you, Rizwan. I appreciate it. I appreciate you using our Australian language there with mate, but makes me feel at home, almost brings a tear to my eye. But thank you so much. I think it's great. I really appreciate what you're doing for the industry and sharing industry information from everybody. So thank you very much.
No, well, thank you. And I hope you all found that useful. As always, check out the links, leave some comments, and stay well and stay safe. So until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.